Hey, what's up guys? This is Nishi here. Welcome to another Market Watch episode on MST.TV. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at some of the more notable, out of nowhere price jumps that we've seen on the market over the last little while. Now, these buyouts are coming at a really weird time, especially with no events planned for the foreseeable future. However, hopefully this means that you all will be able to sell your cards at these hyped up prices. We don't know when events are going to start back up again, so we don't know what or how many reprint sets might be planned that far into the future. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is to get rid of these hyped up cards for cash, because it's the less risky position to take on. I'd rather sell too early than be stuck holding onto a card for too long. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's get started. First up, let's take a look at Constellar Pleiades. So Eldritch is a deck that people are still hyping up quite a bit as possibly one of the best decks of the format. Eldritch is now an $80 card, which is way higher than I think it should be right now, given that we have no events going on and the deck is fairly unproven, but I digress. Pleiades is a fairly useful card in Eldritch, which has 2 traps that turn into level 5 light monsters, so they're able to make Pleiades somewhat consistently. Now, I believe that the deck still plays Pot of Extravagance, as you don't really need to go into your extra deck too often, but it's good to have as an available option. Anyways, we've seen 2 versions of the card jump up in price, the DT, which is now at around $35, and the original Secret Rare, which is around $11. These prices seem fairly high for a card that you're probably not going to be making too often with the Eldritch deck, and the card does have multiple printings available, so you should be able to grab the same card in common or gold rare for only around $1 or $2. So absolutely, you should be at the very least moving any extra copies you have lying around and looking at using lower rarities if you really need to. Next up, we're going to take a look at a couple of cards that are hyped up because of the Adamancipator deck. So Turia Beast is a synchro monster that the Adamancipator deck can make fairly easily, as all of the tuners are earth monsters. On top of that, it also typically plays Gigantis, as well as Recover, both of which are earth monsters. Because of this, Turia Beast has seen a bit of hype, particularly the higher rarity versions, as DT copies are now a whole $100, and secret rares are still up a bit at around $13. Now, don't go too crazy, we still do have several cheaper versions available, most notably the dual power one coming out just last year, and still only being $1 or so. It has been a while since we've seen Turia Beast see a lot of play in the meta, but it is a really popular option a lot of the time, as it could negate every single one of your opponent's spell cards in their turn. We see this fairly often with cards like Turia Beast that go in and out of the meta. They always spike when they're seeing play, and then they settle back down after they rotate out. I think it's definitely a card that you should be playing in Adamancipators, though I personally don't think it's worth spending $100 on a single copy of a card like this when you have a $1 alternative readily available. Now, speaking of Gigantis, this is another common card that has also seen a little bit of a buyout all across the board. Now, there are several printings of the card, the most recent being in OTS Tournament Pack 12. However, OTS 12 was only available at tournaments, and all other versions of this card are quite old. On top of that, this is a card that Adamancipators will probably want to play at 3, as you can summon multiple copies in the same turn, and it's very rarely a dead card in your hand. Anyways, this card lacks a holo version, so all of the commons are actually around $3 a piece at the moment, which is really significant for a card that I remember picking up dozens of copies of off the table at my locals just a couple months ago because people didn't want them. It's definitely a card to try and dig out of your common bulk and then move before they do decide to give it a holo version. So this is one that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of by now, since I've seen a lot of people posting about it online, but Recover is now a $4 super rare card. This card is pretty obscure. In Duelist Alliance format, this card was used in Cliff Forts with Emergency Teleport in order to make Turia Beast and auto-win the Necros matchup, but it's seeing play again now in Adamancipators as an Earth Tuner with Glow Up Ball being banned. Anyways, this card is available as a common that might be a little bit difficult to find because it is an older bulk card. The holo version, though, was only available in the Primal Origin Deluxe Edition, which was one of those things that's similar to like an Elite Trainer box in Pokemon or the Fat Pack in Magic that contained multiple packs, as well as a promo and then some sleeves, back when Konami temporarily got rid of special editions. It wasn't something that a ton of people opened though, so it might be a bit harder to find these holo versions, though in my opinion, if you can find it, I would rather just play the common version and save myself the trouble. One more Adamancipator card here, and this is Fossil Dyna. So I haven't actually seen this in too many builds because it is a bit more awkward of a card to fully utilize, but Fossil Dyna is now quite an expensive card. The idea with Fossil Dyna in Adamancipators is that you can summon it at the end of your combo with the effects of either the wind or the fire synchro and prevent your opponent from special summoning in addition to whatever other negates you have set up. Obviously, great when it goes off, but if not, it's kind of a dead card to hold on to, since summoning it would stop you from doing the rest of your combo. Now, secret rares are really expensive now, with unlimiteds being about $27 and first eds being a whole $55 to $60. However, even the lower rarities are getting bought out, as the ultras from Duelist Saga are $3 each, and then even the commons and the super rares are a couple dollars a piece. I think that the secret rares are ridiculously hard to find at all, but even if you can grab them, I don't think they're worth the hype, as they'll definitely fall back down if Adamancipators aren't part of the meta or if the deck doesn't use this card. I think it's cute, so if you do want to play it in the deck, grab your lower rarity version sooner rather than later, while it's still only a couple of dollars. Next up, this is a card that has been increasing in price fairly steadily over the last couple of months, despite not really being played in any one big deck. Galaxy Soldier is a card that has a history of spiking in price. We first saw it when people played it in Blue Eyes as a light card that helps to get light monsters into the graveyard and set up a fairly free Cyber Dragon Infinity. Since then, it has had 2 ultra rare reprints, and even though the prices have initially tanked to around $2 or so each time at first, they've always managed to climb back up. At the moment, we're looking at around $6 for ultra rare copies and $14 for secret rares. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this one, to be honest. I think it is partially due to a lot of people talking about Cyber Dragons now being a good deck under the new Master Rule, which is certainly possible. I'm not sure. There's not really any results that we can use to validate this price jump, though it could also be that Galaxy Soldier is just a super splashable, compact way to get Cyber Dragon Infinity access to any light-based deck, as you really just need the 2 copies of Galaxy Soldier in your deck, and then the Nova and your Infinity in your extra deck. So yeah, nothing to freak out about. I think a lot of people are probably just concerned about the possibility of it spiking in price again, since it does have a history of getting quite expensive. It might be worth looking into getting your copies now before they do spike in the near future. So this one is a bit unexpected because it is a newer card, but Satellite Warrior is starting to creep up in price, as it was only a couple of dollars before, but now it's like a $5 card. I don't believe that this is for any one deck in particular, but rather any deck that can synchro summon and plays Crystron Needle Fiber. The idea here is that you leave Needle Fiber on board and you make a level 8 synchro somewhere, then tag Needle Fiber into Formula Synchron to draw a card, then synchro during your opponent's turn into Satellite Warrior and pop a couple of your opponent's cards. Honestly, not a horrible strategy, because if you have like a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon that might otherwise be destroyed, you can synchro with it after using its negation to get some value out of it. Now, I wouldn't freak out about this one too much since it is a bit more niche, and I feel like because so many people open this set to try and pull Magician Souls, there's quite a few quantities floating around on the market, so you should still be able to pick them up or trade for them for relatively cheap. Next up, this is one that's like super low-key. I only even know about it because I think it was mentioned in MCole40's Market Watch, but Smoke Grenade of the Thief, an obscure card from Dark Beginnings 2 and Legacy of Darkness, is now like a $2 to $3 common card. For those of you who don't know, if it's face up and equipped to something and then destroyed by a card effect, you get to look at your opponent's hand and discard a card. So this card was used before with Gearfried the Iron Knight to destroy itself and then rip cards from your opponent. I believe that's actually a GOAT deck that used Blast with Chain as well. In this case though, it is the Flame Noble Knights that were announced a while back that abuse this card. The level 9 Synchro Charlie lets you equip an equip spell during the end phase and then pop a card on the field when a monster is equipped with something. So you can equip and then pop the Smoke Grenade during your own turn when you're going first to take a card from your opponent's hand before they even have a chance to play. Now, I don't know if this is going to be like a popular thing that people will be doing. I don't believe so. I remember reading the Flame Noble Knight cards and thinking they were all like really average, nothing too great, but it is definitely something that should be dug out of your bulk for all of you to get ready to move if you have them, if you can find them, and if they are in decent condition. It hasn't been reprinted in more than a decade, and if the deck starts to get some people's attention, I could see it very easily jumping up and maybe being like a $5, even $10 common card. Alright, the last card I want to talk about here is Windup Kitten. So this is a card that I think people might be talking about because of Marfe, the new beast archetype coming out in Rise of the Duelist, because it can be summoned off of Obedient Scold. Now I believe it was actually played before with the baby raccoons Ponpoko and Tantan, as it fit the criteria to be summoned out by Obedient Scold. It also has a somewhat cute effect for if you happen to draw it, allowing you to bounce an opponent's card for free. Now because this is an ultimate rare, which is the highest rarity, we're currently looking at $19 for a single ultimate rare near mint copy on TCG Player, which is kind of insane. I think that this is definitely just because people want to buy out the ultimate rare version specifically as the highest rarity, and not because it's going to see a lot of play. You can still grab ultra rare copies for only a couple dollars a piece. So yeah, if you happen to have this card lying around somewhere, go ahead and move them while these prices are still hyped up. Alright guys, so that is it for today's episode. Hopefully you all found it informative. I know the market is definitely a lot slower right now. There's no tournaments, so nothing's spiking out of nowhere because a deck topped a regionals or anything like that. There's not even locals, so I feel like cards are kind of just sitting around and people aren't looking around at too much stuff outside of the really obvious stuff for Adamancipators and Eldlich, and then whenever we get news for new cards that are coming out in the OCG that will eventually come over to the TCG. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy this video or found it informative, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button for me. Also, please be sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know what's going on in the market that maybe I didn't cover in this episode, so I can potentially cover it in a future video to keep all of you as informed with the market as possible. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to myself and Tombox for all of the latest Yu-Gi-Oh content. And as always guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.